I'm looking at you. You got your Oilers jersey on. The background looks great. You have looks like a convention of Al Snow's heads in the background, and
Yeah, my wife's a hairdresser,
yeah.
so we keep a lot of dismembered heads in the house.
Obviously, she's not practicing on you because of the lack of hair. So there we go.
She has suggested doing straight razor, and I'm like, actually, she did it once, and I'm like, oh, you're doing okay. And she's like, this is my first time. I'm like, don't say that.
And with that, it's time for the fall edition of Odds and Sods. Woo! Hey everybody, it's Kellen Nitro from Nitromaniac TV's wrestling channel, and joining me on the other end of the line is the mighty Moorhouse. Moorhouse, what is happening, my friend?
It's all good in the hood.
It is, eh?
Yeah.
Explain something on my end here first before we get going really hot and heavy with this edition of Odds and Sods. First of all, why the name Odds and Sods? We talk about the odds and ends in the wrestling business, maybe the little niche stories that people won't get to and that stuff, but we find interesting. And Sods because we're a couple of Sods, so there we go, Odds and Sods, as the Brits would say. They would tell us to sod off, but anyway. And second of all, yes, do not adjust your set if you're watching this podcast on YouTube. I do have a bit of a glare issue because it's so frickin' bright outside as we record this, but it's just due to timing and location and so forth and all that fun stuff. So make do with the glare, everybody. It happens. It looks like one side of my face is on fire right now, but other than that, it's okay. So, anyways, we're just going to rattle off some of, like I said, some of the hot button topics and some of the more obscure topics that have kind of come across our plate over the past few weeks in the wrestling business since we last did one of these, which was early spring of 2018. So a lot has happened since then and that stuff. And I guess the first place where we could start, the most obvious place to start, would be, man, what a lousy fourth quarter, just, I guess, with personnel and everything happening wise WWE has had since, I guess, SummerSlam on. Because you take a look at it, you've had the unfortunate news with Roman Reigns. You've had now the situation with Becky Lynch, where it could have been the hottest main event on a pay-per-view in a long time that they've had, and this all blew up. And then, on top of it, the Saudi Arabia thing. Moorhouse, your thoughts on this entire, I don't want to say dumpster fire, because somehow they are keeping on, and they manage to kind of rise themselves from the ashes, but every time they do, it always seems that something happens.
Is it one step forward, two steps behind right now?
More like they take one step forward and then they get knocked back 10.
That seems insane. To be the... I mean, it's hard to find positives when it feels like the overall business right now is kind of lull. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of traction going on.
Well, it's the dead period of the year, too.
Yeah, it's the deadest period we've seen. It's probably the deadest period we've seen in a long time, because it's not even just being felt by WWE, but it's being felt by multiple corporate companies right now. You got Becky Lynch, who had a hot angle this week, or on Raw recently, and it was all caused under by a punch to the face. I don't know if it's accidental or not, but I feel like could be a building opportunity with Nia Jax. You could build her into a ass kicker, like someone who just doesn't give a F.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's, I think, the direction they're going to go.
Then you have Roman, who, unfortunately his leukemia came back, so he's going to be taking personal time to get that sorted out.
And who knows how long that's going to take? That's the thing where you don't want to mess around with, obviously, and that stuff. So, hey, he takes as much time as he needs to get that straightened out.
But the alternative is throw the belt back on the guy who barely wrestles.
I don't get that. I really don't. It's just, and then you were teasing for the past 2 or 3 weeks a Brock Lesnar AJ Styles match at Survivor Series, which we saw last year, and to be quite honest with you, was not one of the high points of AJ's year wrestling Brock. The two styles didn't mesh, but now it will have already happened as you take a look at this. We're looking at Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan, and the potential of those two styles not meshing is kind of, a thing too. It's a very real situation, right? So,
and they're also both heels at the moment.
Yes.
So you have a heel versus heel match between a part-timer and a guy with neck problems.
Yeah, it's good. You have this amazing comeback story coming right back into WWE and that stuff and all the momentum off of it. And what do? Well, let's feed him to a monster who likes to dump people on his heads.
For the guy who has head problems.
Yeah.
And then you have Saudi Arabia happened not too long ago as well. Right after Evolution, which was a good time. Then you went the next week to a bad time with Saudi Arabia. They have this big King of the Ring style Best in the World tournament. Shane McMahon wins it out of nowhere, and there's no follow-up on that in the last 2 weeks.
Yep. The first mention I saw that was in the build of Survivor Series over the past week on SmackDown, or not on SmackDown, on Raw, where Stephanie and Corbin talked about it passingly in a backstage vignette about halfway through the show. Like, it was a general figure. It's like, we've got to beat him because he thinks he's the best in the world right now,
So, other than the Raw title changing at Saudi Arabia, it's almost like that event never happened, and they're just washing their hands of it.
Yep, exactly. Just go right into the thing until they release the DVDs and the Blu-rays and that stuff, and then they want to try and make a profit off of what they've got because they have the network, but not enough people are on the network, and you name it. So, yeah.
So just right now, there's no momentum going into the Rumble. I have ideas what I would book, but again, I don't work for WWE. I cannot say what's in their heads.
It's been worse, though. I mean, like, I've seen this. This is probably, and I mentioned this on one of my Nitro takes prior to recording this, probably about maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember what exact one it was, but it's the most interesting fourth quarter WWE has had in a long time just because of all the negative forces working against them. That's about it. And so you kind of it's interesting because I don't want to say it's a car crash, but it's like watching a race and the car catches on fire, and it's like, okay, what's the driver going to do, right? So it's just one of those things. It's amazing just to see their reaction and what they do with different circumstances and that stuff. Like the Becky Lynch thing was one that came right out of nowhere, and you watch it Monday night on Raw, and it's like, awesome. This is her Austin moment. Could be a definitive. This is a CM Punk pipe bomb moment. This is going to launch her and propel her for the next few years. What she's doing here and that stuff, and then immediately you watch it again, and then you realize, oh, geez, Nia clocked her pretty good with that.
Knocked her out.
Knocked her right out. And then it's like, whoa, I hope she doesn't have concussion problems. The next night, she's got concussion problems and can't make the fight. So it's like, oh, man. It's just one of the worst things. And like I said, one of the most anticipated main events in 2018 for WWE, maybe in a long time, is off the table because, injury. But the good news is, the rumor is, and we'll wait and see about this in 2019, and of course we'll be talking about it here on the Wrestling Channel, but is Ronda Becky is on for WrestleMania 35 now. They've effectively just flip-flopped what they were going to do. They were going to do Ronda Becky at Survivor Series, building up to Ronda Charlotte at Mania. The consensus amongst all the experts and dirt sheet writers and whoever, and the guy on the street sitting in front of the Quickie Mart is, they flip-flopped. And so they're doing Ronda Charlotte this weekend, obviously, and then Ronda Becky later on down the line at WrestleMania. Or they did Ronda, Charlotte at Survivor Series, depending on when you watch this. So there we go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll work out. I think she's still using social media to get her heat still going. So
absolutely.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. And then, I don't know, is WWE putting all their eggs in a basket right now? Or are they trying to get the Elite maybe in January?
Let's transition into that one, because that was going to be a topic I wanted to talk to you quickly about. It was revealed on a Talk is Jericho episode. I don't have the date in front of me, but it was mid-November.
It was on the ship.
Yeah, and it was taped on the ship, but it was released to the general public in mid-November during the cruise. That not so much the endorsement, but the Elite being part of Bullet Club is no longer a thing. The Elite is its own thing going forward. So that, of course, fans fuel to the fire and all the speculation of Cody going back to WWE. Is he taking the Young Bucks with him? Is he taking Kenny Omega with him? Are all of them going to WWE? Or is this another step in New Japan kind of starting up a brand new faction for their top Gaijin wrestlers for 2019 to feud with the now fully heel Bullet Club, which involves Jay White for some odd reason?
The new leader, Jay White.
Okay, pump the brakes here. They go out on the G1 special in Long Beach and do their thing where they pound the hell out of the Elite and leave them laying. And Tonga Loa jumps on the mic and cuts the promo saying, "There is no leader. We are all equals." And now Jay White is the leader. Wrestling is hypocrisy. Anyway,
it hasn't been officially announced White's the leader,
but it's assumed, yes.
Yeah, the merchandise sales, Jay White's the first with his own official. Cody's mentioned many times that it's Jay White's club now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not official, but yeah, Jay White's leading this group.
Don't get me wrong. Whoever has been the quote-unquote leader of Bullet Club in Japan has had their career just elevated so much more. It's an all-star spot. It's become an all-star spot over the past 5 or 6 years, because you look at the past names of that leadership group right there. Fergal Devitt, a.k.a. Finn Balor, AJ Styles, Kenny Omega.
And Carl Anderson.
Carl Anderson as well. So there we go. There's 4 names that are, making huge money, big money right now in the wrestling industry. I'll be honest with you, I don't see Jay White at that level yet. Just yet.
He's getting better.
I know, but
he's improved a lot since last year. When he fought Tanahashi.
Well, he's got Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. That'll be interesting. That'll be I think a really good matchup. It'd be interesting where they place that match in the card, if it goes towards the middle of the card or if it's leading into the double main event that they're building again here for Wrestle Kingdom. So
yeah, they have, I think, 5 or 6 matches announced, and they still don't have a lot of their top other guys booked yet.
Yeah, but it's Wrestle Kingdom, so if they're not booked, they just go into the Rumble at the beginning of the show. And
do you want to see Suzuki in a Rumble?
I kind of do. I kind of want to see him and Ishii as like the last 2 guys.
Yeah.
And then they could have like a 40-minute meat chopping extravaganza leading into the show. It'd be great just to cut away from them in the ring chopping, and then they go into the whole opening VTR and roll into it, and that's if then they roll back to the booth and Kevin Kelly and Don Callis are sitting there ringside. It's like, well, hey, we were supposed to have an opening match, but the Rumble is still continuing. These guys are beating the hell out of each other. That would be awesome. That feud, I think, is one of the most underrated feuds of the year. Suzuki and Ishii, because these guys they are like, did you see what happened at Power Struggle? Because that was just insane.
Mm-hmm.
That was old school. It's just 2 guys that just are gonna beat the crap out of each other for 40 minutes. That was
two crazy MFers who are stiff as hell.
The shots were just like the forearm shivers they were giving each other, and that's just like it was. We're Canadian, so we're going to inevitably make this comparison, but it was like watching a good hockey fight, and it was like watching a good hockey fight, except this was like a good hockey fight where the refs just kind of backed off, and they're like, let these boys go at it. We're not getting involved.
That's good stuff. Bob Holly and Stan Hansen would approve.
Oh, absolutely. That's their type of entertainment right there. Because that's not entertainment, that's sports at that point.
Yeah.
That's just ain't no entertainment about that. That's just pure athleticism for both those guys. But man, it's one of those things, and we'll have to wait and see because I think because it went over so well last year on the channel, we'll definitely have to hit up our picks for the 2018 Wrestling Observer Awards and that stuff because he did such a great job of grabbing all the information for all the questions and such, and so kind of a teaser here. We will do one. It'll just be a matter of when and where we can pump them out, but it'll happen probably in January sometime. I'm thinking so for that.
I think it comes out in April, but yeah, we could do it much earlier than Meltzer does his. So.
Well, we did ours in January, and it was February last year, and it went over really well with the viewers and the fan base. And in fact, some of you watching and listening to this may have came over to the channel via watching those videos. So that was a lot of fun to do because it helped us kind of stretch out the old brain cells and think what we wanted to. What we loved about the year, what we hated about the year, and I know this year after doing it, I've been kind of looking at things a little bit differently because with that in mind, I kind of have things in the back of my head like, okay, this kind of shortlisted as one of the best shows of the year, or this show sucked. I'm putting that in the worst show of the year column, etc. So, all right, yeah. Next bit on Odds and Sods, we're going to talk about James Ellsworth. Dude, what the fuck? Just what the fuck, dude. Just to elaborate, and of course, Moorhouse, you can correct me if I get some information wrong here and that stuff, but this is how I interpret the situation. Dude was being a creep to underage fans.
Happens to the best of us. No, it doesn't.
No.
You should know better.
Absolutely not. Just a real scummy move. This everything right now is still alleged and going through the courts and that stuff. But if indeed it is found that he was taking inappropriate photos of himself and sending them out to underage fans during bookings and that stuff, and then on top of it hitting on female wrestlers, female talent, when they got to these shows, or to the arena for these shows and everything like that, it's really scummy. And the fact too that he was wrestling on the independents with a gimmick as the intergender champion kind of gives that whole thing a little bit of a creepy vibe now, so.
Yeah, I realized I have nothing to say on this. I mean,
no, there really isn't anything to say other than this guy is a creepazoid. I mean, like, really, it's just one of those things where, like, you can even go back on videos on this channel here and that stuff where I've put over James Ellsworth and then, of course, the WWE run and that stuff as one of the bright spots in WWE over the past 2 or 3 years, and it was one of the different things that made SmackDown Live interesting, right? Is essentially this generation's Mikey Whipwreck going out there and doing his thing and actually at one point being considered a serious contender for the WWE Championship. I'll repeat again, at one point in his career he was a serious contender for the WWE Championship. He was putting up entertaining matches with AJ Styles, albeit they were semi-squash matches. They weren't, Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, Ring of Honor 2005 classics. They were entertaining comedy matches that were great main events for SmackDown Live TV shows, right?
Yeah, no, maybe it was just too much fame, too much fast, if it is the case, because he's just, came out of the indies. I don't know what territory it was, but it was a local promotion that he wrestled for.
Maryland,
yeah.
Actually, his own promotion in Maryland, I think. He was running one, and then he got the call to do job duty to Braun Strowman, and that launched him, right? So,
mm-hmm. And then, it's been 2 years of whirlwind being considered, top indie book guy recently.
Right.
And then this girl, we don't know much about the story other than a 16-year-old girl is accusing him, has photo evidence. But she also mentioned that this is not the first time she's had this problem with a wrestler, as the wrestler Sabu has also, tried to solicit her.
Right. Exactly. So, of course, everything, we know at this point we got to take with a grain of salt, just due to the fact that, it's being presented in the courts, and there are half-truths out there, and we obviously don't know the full story and the full effect of what's going on. It's just, here's the situation. If presented with the final verdict, and it is determined that he did do these things, then that's going to be a fair chunk of television from the early brand split, or this early brand split, that WWE will not be able to reference for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only that, that's part of their main event scene, right?
Yeah, so. No, I mean, it's AJ's first half year in WWE that would be wiped.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because that was a feud between the two of them for months.
You'd be able to pick it up when Ambrose and AJ finally started going one-on-one for the title on SmackDown Live.
Yeah.
That would be it. Because that's what led into it. That was the immediate thing. And then you'd have to cut that out when Ellsworth did the heel turn on Ambrose.
Mm-hmm.
So the network's going to get edited very heavily. That's going to be the thing. So,
and I imagine that cleaning happening pretty quickly. I remember when Enzo had his accusation against him. The next day, pretty much, he was erased from memory.
Pretty much, exactly. Speaking of Enzo Amore, dude got kicked off of a plane recently for vaping on a plane.
Vapors got a vape, man.
Don't vape on the plane. Pure and simple. Do not do.
Do not do?
Do not do.
Yeah. I've only heard the main story and seen a video where one of the passengers on the plane made fun of him when he was leaving.
Did it make fun of his hair or something? Because I didn't see the video.
When he was when he was walking off the plane with his carry-on, and then someone in the aisle seat was just like, "How you doing?"
Oh man. I mean, dudes, like, there was, I don't want to say unflattering, but there were a couple of pictures that hit the internet too recently of Big Cass working a independent show somewhere in the on the Eastern Seaboard in the United States. And of course, if you're not in WWE, you're going to let yourself kind of not train as hard as you once did and that stuff, because life and other things get in the way and such. And it's kind of taking, I don't want to say the Cassius Ohno approach to the independent wrestling and that stuff, but it's definitely not the same body type he had in WWE. He kind of let himself go a little bit, but I mean, that something was up with those two boys. Honestly, it just kind of, I don't know if it was what the dream was teaching them or something didn't click or whatever, but when you look at the success factor out of that, I guess you would say the initial NXT class there, and even the majority of those who aren't in WWE anymore, talking about Tennille Dashwood and Juice Robinson that were in that class, and their success.
Sami Callihan, yeah.
Sami Callihan is another one, right? And you look at those two guys, it's just a fact that they just didn't get it. They didn't get it from day one.
Nope.
You're a professional athlete at that point. Act like a professional athlete. 7
foot tall and loves Wendy's. You can't teach that.
Be nice. I like Wendy's.
Okay, fine. It locks Dairy Queen. Jim
Cornette.
God damn.
Good segue, by the way, because something that I've been meaning to discuss with you for a long time, and I did put a Nitro to Ask about it on the channel earlier this year, is the oversaturation now of wrestling-related channels, podcasts, everything. And I know that this is pot calling kettle black now at this point, but I mean, it's a valid argument right now. It's just that there seems to be so much content out there put out by not only wrestlers but by fans that it's overwhelming. I mean, quick count off the top of your mind, how many wrestling podcasts are you subscribed to right now that you listen to? Doesn't have to be regularly, just like over the last month or so. How many different shows?
6. I think 6 is regular, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to name them?
If you want. I mean, I was just looking for the number. That's about it. But
I got The Experience.
Mm-hmm.
The Edge and Christian Show.
Okay.
Talk is Jericho.
Yep.
83 Weeks.
Mm.
I did have Colt. I haven't listened to him in a while.
Right.
And The Drive-Thru, another corny.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
See, I'm sitting about 8 or 9 myself, because pretty much all the ones you've mentioned, and then add on top of that 605 Super Podcast, Wrestle Crap Radio when they do go, even though that's kind of more comedy variety than anything else now.
Yeah, I have Wrestle Crap, but
yeah,
they only tape maybe once every few months right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then OSW.
OSW?
Well. Yeah, exactly.
The O Show?
The O Show, exactly. And, you know, the majority of that content is awesome content. And it's great stuff, and it's, you know, check mark, hits all the boxes, everybody loves it, and that's everything. The amount of wrestlers now, though, having podcasts is kind of getting a little bit on the ludicrous side. I think it was brought to my mind that there was somebody like, oh yeah, that's right, it was for the Arcadian Vanguard stuff that somebody had posted in one of the forums, that a guy by the name of Randy Hales is doing a podcast. Randy Hales was the C-Squad announcer on Memphis television through the late 90s into 2000. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. I'd kind of draw the line there, you know. I really don't, you know, it's just, Memphis is such a niche thing that, you know, I really don't need to hear what the C-Squad guy through late 90s, early 2000s Memphis was doing when they were a pseudo WWE developmental territory, but, you know.
Oh man, you're just giving me an idea for a Twitter game.
Okay.
So, name the most obscure wrestling podcast you can think of.
Wow. Okay.
The Tracy Smothers Super Show.
Like, just hypothetically, that, like, does it have to exist, or just hypothetically?
Just hypothetically, like, what is the Viscera Hour? I know he's passed, but
yeah, the Viscera Hour. Man.
Keeping Up with David Heath.
I don't know.
I get your point, though. It's like, because I have a buddy who's like, hey, man, you got to check out this podcast. It's a wrestling podcast. I'm like, oh, dude, I already got so many. He's like, oh, go check out Solo Monster. I don't want to check out Solo Monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go check out Ric Flair show. No, that show was horrible.
Also, he hasn't done one in a long time, too. You know, like, if somebody did, like, just, you're talking about obscure. If somebody did, like, a behind the scenes, between the sheets style episode of 1999 to 2000 Stampede Wrestling booking, of course that would grab my attention, right? So, but you know, there's so many of them out there right now, and I think that's kind of it kind of reflects on the subscriber counts to all these shows and that stuff, that there is oversaturation happening. My channel, for example, this channel here, as we record, has 37 subscribers or so. I do a auto racing channel as well, and that channel is well into the 500s for subscribers. And both these channels were launched on the same day in 2017. Now, that could potentially be, one is considered family-friendly content, whereas wrestling's been kind of blacklisted on YouTube for, a couple of years now and that stuff, and it makes it harder for people to find wrestling-related content on YouTube, or at least YouTube has tried to make it harder for people to find wrestling-related content on YouTube. People are still going to find, what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I think that can't be 100% blame for the low numbers now. It's got to be, it's got to be more of a split between oversaturation, that, and maybe people tuning out because the WWE product is such an unpredictable roller coaster at this point.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. But oversaturation, like how many hours a day can you listen to wrestling podcasts?
Right. Exactly.
How many hours of a day do you want to watch wrestling? It's even happening with like the network. You got Raw, you got SmackDown, you got Main Event, you got Superstars, you got NXT, you got NXT Britain now. You got a pay-per-view every couple weeks. Then you have original shows. I mean, they're expecting you to watch wrestling the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Is all you think about is wrestling.
When they launched a network back in 2014, they ran one of those "Did you know?" Bumpers coming back from commercial on Raw, and it said that if you started watching every piece of content on the WWE network, it would take you 2 years to watch it all front to back. And that's if you spent 24/7 365 watching it. If you had it on a constant loop in the background, just going from video to video. Now, of course, that's exponentially growing because of the footage rights deals that WWE has picked up, so they've got some extra stuff thrown in there. The new programming since 2014.
Alternative promotions now.
And then on top of that, the stuff that they've been promoting since 2014, all the big events and that stuff. And this is still without having full episodes same day of Raw and SmackDown on that network, which I thought was going to be a no-brainer when they launched that thing. That, okay, if you couldn't catch Raw on Sportsnet or USA or wherever you watch it around the world, you could log into the network and watch it on demand whenever.
Not a month later?
Yeah, not a month later, exactly. Like, I still don't get that. Has to be a deal with the television rights holders and that stuff for that, because that's the only thing that makes sense off that.
Exactly, and what's going to happen next fall when SmackDown goes Fox? And from what I hear, Fox wants legitimate sporting content for SmackDown, where it's just, here's your matches, no storylines.
Well, they're going to get a wake-up call with that, because they're not going to get that. That's kind of the thing, right? They're definitely not going to get that at all. So
Raw is all your storylines, and SmackDown's just rank fights. Yeah, number 1 ranked AJ takes on number 3 ranked Shelton Benjamin tonight.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's how they do it. Maybe Raw becomes the show where they book promos and they do all the behind-the-scenes glitzy stuff and the storyline and everything. Maybe they throw a couple matches on there to make it seem like a wrestling show. And then SmackDown is more of a reflection more of a reflection like NXT. Where if you watch NXT, an hour of NXT, they do a really good job now with that show, where I think like about 60-70% of that hour is in-ring matches.
Yeah, they have 3 matches and maybe 2 promos.
That's it. Yeah. And then they'll do the wacky stuff during the show as well and everything, but it's more matches than it is wacky. So. Mm-hmm.
Where Raw right now is already 4 matches and 47 promos.
52 promos. All of the promos. Not enough promos. Well, there's too many promos. So promotional
consideration presented by the following.
Presented by the following, yes. All right, some quick hitters here as we roll along on the odds and sods here for fall of 2018 on Nitromaniac TV's wrestling channel. What did you think of all the stuff coming out of the Chris Jericho Cruise? What did you think of that entire concept, how it was executed, and I guess the would you, if you had the cash, go to do something like that? Would be the question.
I would, in a sense, it's worth the money you're paying for. Like, you're getting a lot of stuff.
Yep.
I wouldn't, because I would start to get annoyed with the amount. Like, I'm a wrestling fan, but I find talking to some wrestling fans is like talking to a wall.
Yeah,
like,
it's wrestling is such a universal love from its fans from front to back that it's all inclusive. So with all-inclusive communities, you're going to get, your share of people that, oh yeah, I'd love to have a drink with them, or oh yeah, I'd love to talk to them, whatever. And then you'd have your fair share of, get this dude away from me. What's going on, right?
Oh, hey, Kellen. Kellen, did you ever see SummerSlam '97? Oh, SummerSlam '97 was amazing, wasn't it, Kellen? What did you think? Did you think The Undertaker should have won the belt? I think Bret Hart, he didn't deserve that belt. They knew he was going to leave. What do you think, Kellen?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of that's the thing, right?
Those are the fans I can't stand.
Well, every sport has them, though, and that stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah, hockey has them. Yeah,
I could even tell you, the names of a couple people I've met, even in the drag racing world. So shout out to Nitromaniac TV Drag Files if you haven't checked out that channel. But a couple people I met even in that realm that kind of are the same way in that stuff, where they're just spouting out random factoids and stuff about different racers and accomplishments and everything that just have nothing to do with discussions online or anything like that. And it's just like, okay, well, that's great. That adds nothing to
I don't care
of the picture or whatever that somebody posted in the Facebook group, but whatever, So it's
well,
but yeah.
I imagine you get that with your day-to-day job too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Like I said, every professional sport has, the whole purpose of professional sports is fans, and fans are short for fanatic, which means that you are, a fanatic of whatever it is that you're a fan of, right? So, and you're passionate about it, and you can't get enough of it, right? And so that's why you're, paying $500 to sit ringside to watch your last place hockey team play, or paying $5,000 to go to Phoenix for a Royal Rumble or whatever, or etc. right? That. So it's like it's always been that kind of argument between the athletes, and I've known some pro athletes that have said in the past, hey, this would be a great industry, I just wish there was no fans, that's it. And then you have the Arizona Coyotes, right? So there.
Yeah. Well, if you have no fans, do you get paid?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Right.
Like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I get to do whatever I want. There's only one guy in the audience, so I'm getting paid 7 cents tonight.
And I mean, that's a great, it's maybe that's a topic to open it up into the discussion below. So like, put your comment below what you think. Is like, because I know that there are fans that view this channel's content. I know there are wrestlers that view this channel's content as well. So just throw your comments below on, I guess, how much fandom is too much fandom in your mind. Like, is there a line? Like, do you, and I guess this kind of transitions to, is it right? Is it proper etiquette? And a lot of WWE stars were talking about this earlier this year, about being accosted at different, shall we say, inappropriate times for autographs, and then being lambasted on social media. I know this has happened to Randy Orton a couple of times. Allegedly, this has happened to Sasha Banks as recent as, I want to say, about 6 weeks ago or so. Is that a...
Was that the photo with the guy with the porn shirt?
I believe so, yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah, wasn't that like a Jenna Jameson shirt he was wearing or something like?
It was for the YouPorn site.
Oh, YouPorn. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh.
Kind of a little bit strange, for sure.
No, I think there has to be a level of respect between fans and talent myself. They're just people like you and I. They just do a different job than you and I. I've been in the presence of, talent or celebrities before, and I'm not one to go, oh my God, I want to hang out with you and hug you and kiss you. No, I'll shake their hand. I'll be like, it's nice to meet you, mister, and thank you for everything you've done. But I'm not, and that's it. That's where we leave it.
So, of course, it being towards the end of the year 2018, we're starting to see what the picture of the wrestling world will start to look like to start the year in 2019. But, of course, there's a bunch of rumored names of stars from the past that are coming back or attempting to make comebacks in 2019. One of them is David Arquette, which is very interesting, just due to the fact that he's done independent shows over the past 2 or 3 years, different independent bookings and that stuff. I know he recently took a booking with Rise, which is kind of the NXT version of NXT for Shimmer, if that makes sense. It's a seminar-based promotion that feeds talent to Shimmer women athletes for their shows in Chicago all the time. But he made an appearance on a card for that to wrestle an intergender match, I think. And another name that you had just reminded me of, and that I saw on Twitter a couple days ago, Ken Shamrock, looking at making a return in 2019.
He's made an open challenge for any heavyweight champion to fight. Poorly spelled on Twitter. He must have English problems, but yeah, And then the funny thing is, today Orton replied to him, and basically did a bad spelling return, says, "Bro, if I have title, you have match."
Okay. Ken Shamrock coming out of nowhere. The last WWE match that I remember him wrestling was, we're almost coming up on a 20-year anniversary of it, because he left WWE in 1999 to focus on MMA solely. I think.
That was when he was. Yeah, he had his dojo, and he was in a well publicized feud with Ortiz at the time.
Yeah, and so he jumped over to UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it would be interesting. It would be really interesting. I could see WWE bringing him in as a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be, if WWE had any interest in bringing Ken Shamrock back, that would be the role that he would be. We'd see him at Barclays at the Hall of Fame next year, getting an induction, and then maybe utilizing him in the same way as a Kurt Angle.
Absolutely. I think he could definitely do some training. He's never been big on mic or charisma, so I couldn't see him carrying that, like a storyline of a GM or Angle. I couldn't see him doing a GM role or see him doing a backstage manager role, because that's just not his character.
No, I think you just pair him with a mouthpiece, like it's almost like the Leo Rush, Bobby Lashley thing. It's like you just pair him with a mouthpiece when he's here and let it happen, right? I don't think you necessarily give him Heyman, but I mean, it would be kind of interesting to see Heyman bring Shamrock back into the fold and say, I now have the two most influential athletes in UFC, and they are dominating WWE, Or
why don't you do a Lesnar Shamrock match? And I know Chael Sonnen's always hinted at being in WWE in some capacity, so you can have Sonnen manage Shamrock.
Are Sonnen and Shamrock on good terms? Because I know Sonnen has a tendency to rub people the wrong way in the MMA industry, but
I'm sure it can be forgiven if they're both getting paid well.
Yeah, money solves all problems most of the time.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And with Arquette, I think it's just with him, maybe he's just trying to capitalize on the Ready to Rumble thing. it's a easily forgettable movie for people that grew up in the 90s and early 2000s and that stuff. The people our age group, pretty much. But if you're a wrestling fan, it's a seminal film that has a cult following just because of how, I don't want to say how bad it was, but the popularity of B movies now. So
it's an awful movie.
it's terrible. It's really bad.
But I mean, he was former WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Mm. He has main evented a WCW pay-per-view. Mm. I could see him being a Royal Rumble goofy entrance in the future.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like, here's your number 23, David Arquette. He just walks in, gets tossed quickly.
He would have to be, yeah. It would be one of those things where they try to break the Santino Marella record or so. Mind you, there's not much time to break that. He got tossed out in like 2 seconds or so. So you'd have to be like stupid quick to get thrown out that quick.
But would you enjoy, let's say, David Arquette coming in, having DDP in the ring over for a surprise as well, and just having them do a quick lockup and then being both tossed by like a Braun Strowman?
I'd love to see them both kind of... You'd have to get licensing for it, but I'd love to see Arquette walk in with the, the music from Ready to Rumble, the Biff Naked version of "We're Not Going to Take It," and it's just him and DDP are, he sees DDP in trouble in the ring or something like that. Maybe it'd have to be like a mid card to lower card guy, like a Hawkins or a someone along those ilks, and then he slides in and he, flukishly knocks out Hawkins or something like that, and then DDP and Arquette are like, yeah, awesome, whatever, and then DDP gives him the diamond cutter and tosses him out.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That'd be fun.
That'd be all right. And be like, that's for 2000.
That's for ruining WC. No, that's not his fault.
That's for Slamboree.
That's for Slamboree. That's for throwing me off a cage.
And if you want to watch that, go check out the network anyway. So
the network, or if you want to check out the movie, go to Blockbuster. If it's around.
There's one Blockbuster left, Moorhouse.
Go to the only Blockbuster.
It's in Oregon somewhere, I think, apparently, from what I've heard.
Well, there we go. We can have a contest, road trip to Oregon to pick up Ready to Rumble.
We'd have to phone them first to find out if they have it, because that's the way these things work, right?
Yes.
That might be a video one day on Nitromaniac TV's wrestling channel. We'll have to wait and see the road trip to Oregon to pick up a... By the way, if you'd like to donate money to help fund that, get in contact with me, because we'll need a lot of money for it.
Gas is in our favor right now.
Bro, I got late fees from way back when.
I think you're dismissed on that right now.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. That was the local Blockbuster. They're not doing so well.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
They finished, so. Anyways, it's time to wrap up this edition of Odds and Sods. He's been Moorhouse. I'm Kellen Nitro. Later days. Happy wrestling watching. We'll catch you guys in tandem probably somewhere down the line here, but of course you can always catch me here on Nitromaniac TV's wrestling channel. Follow me on Twitter at Kellen Nitro. And Moorhouse, you've done some changes with your social media-ing here lately. Tell us, the people, what yours are now.
So I've left Facebook because I'm just joining the bandwagon of jumping off the ship.
Cool.
But Twitter, you can find me at House of More.
House of More.
Yeah.
That's house like you live in.
Yeah. Of.
And then more. M-O-O-R.
Yeah.
There you go. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So follow, like, dislike. We post fun stuff. And if you dig this kind of content, let us know and we'll do more of it. I know we've got to meet up here one of these days and do more of the merch search episodes out of that big white box of wrestling magazines you brought over. So
yes.
Because there's a ton more... There's tons more stuff, I should say, that are in there, and some of it will blow your mind. What WWE and some of the other places we're doing. So
hey buddy, do you want to be a wrestler? for $39.99, I can give you some VHS tapes on how to do drop kicks. Yeah.
Really?
Come see me.
Okay.
It's in those magazines, bro.
It is. All right. Check it out for sure. Anyways, later days. Happy wrestling watching. We'll see ya. Thanks for tuning in.